Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have finally made it to the official release of the 2023 schedule for the Dallas Cowboys. And let me tell you something right here, right now. At face value, it doesn't look easy. But if there's a year that the Dallas Cowboys can break through and get the job done, this is probably the closest it's ever going to get. So here's the 2023 schedule for the Dallas Cowboys, and keep in mind, all of the times that I will be announcing will be in Central Standard Time. To start things off, the Cowboys open up on the road in East Rutherford, New Jersey against the Giants at 7:20 p.m. on Sunday Night Football. For Week 2, they go back home to take on the other New York team in the Jets at 3:25 p.m., and we all know that Aaron Rodgers is now a New York Jet, so we got to deal with him there. Then, the Cowboys head out to the desert to take on the Arizona Cardinals at 3:25 p.m. before they come back home to take on the New England Patriots also at 3:25 p.m. After that game, the Dallas Cowboys then travel to California for their next two games. They start off in Santa Clara versus the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday Night Football at 7:20 p.m., after which they then head out to Los Angeles to take on the Chargers on Monday Night Football at 7:15 p.m. They then have their bye week in Week 7. Then they pick up where they last left off versus the LA Rams at home at noon. They then head out on the road to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles at 3:25 p.m. Then they come home to take on the Giants at 3:25 p.m. as well. They head out to Carolina to take on the Panthers at 12 p.m. before coming back and having 3 straight home games. They have their Thanksgiving matchup versus the Washington Commanders at 3:30 p.m., following another Thursday night matchup versus the Seahawks no less at 7:15 p.m. Then their final home game in this stretch is against the Eagles on Sunday Night Football at 7:20 p.m. After that, they head on the road for their next two games against the Buffalo Bills up in New York at 3:25 p.m. Then they head all the way down to Miami to take on the Dolphins at 3:25 p.m. before heading back for their home closer at 7:15 p.m. against the Lions. This is an ESPN broadcast. This isn't a Sunday Night Football matchup. And then their final game of the year takes place in Washington. However, we don't know what day it's going to be on and what time. Probably determined based off of the matchups, the seeds, and all that other stuff. But that is your schedule for the 2023 Dallas Cowboys. Now, like I said at the beginning of the video, at face value, this is not an easy schedule for the Cowboys. However, there are several factors that we need to keep in mind about this Cowboys team that really impact how I look at this particular season. Let's go ahead and look into those, and then we're going to talk about what I would look at seeing the Cowboys ending up as in 2023. Now, to start things off, the first thing the Cowboys needed to do was churn the offensive coaching staff, and they did exactly that. The remnants of the Jason Garrett era are gone, with Kellen Moore leaving and a couple other of these position coaches leaving as well. Now, Mike McCarthy is able to build the offense how he wants it. Like when Dan Quinn came aboard, he built the defense how he wanted it. We're going to get the same thing on offense. And the other key factor in this is you remove that scapegoat of Kellen Moore. If this offense fails due to play calling, it's on Mike McCarthy and Mike McCarthy alone, because his imprint is now going to be fully on this Cowboys offense. Now, in terms of the overall personnel on the offensive side of the ball, I did say during the offseason the Cowboys needed to add more to the wide receiving core, the running back room, and then add some depth alongside the offensive line. They added Brandon Cooks in free agency with a trade from the Houston Texans. They then added Deuce Vaughn and Ronald Jones in free agency in the draft. Then the big thing is they kept Malik Davis, they kept Rico Dowdle, and we still need to know how things are going to go in that running back room, but overall they did add some depth there. And then on the offensive line, there is still a little bit left to be desired, primarily because the question marks are still there. They did add Chuma Edoga from the Jets in free agency, but I don't think he's going to be anything more than a depth piece, because it looks like the Cowboys are going to roll with Tyler Smith at left guard or some different combination that we might not be prepared for. But I'm not going to be fully complaining about it, because I need to see what Mike McCarthy's coaching staff cooks up. So I'm cool with waiting to get an answer on that. And of course, there are other variables with certain players that are still on roster that are expected to improve from regression, getting injured, all this other stuff. I'm not really going to touch up on that fully because we'll talk about that more as it transpires. But moving over to the defensive side of the ball, I did say in the offseason, the big thing the Cowboys really needed to do to really solidify that defense was adding defensive tackles and linebackers. Now, when you look at what they did, they brought back Leighton Vander Esch. They didn't really do a whole lot at the defensive tackle spot in free agency, but them adding Mozzie Smith in the draft, DeMarvion Overshone, who's this weird hybrid of a linebacker and safety, and then you look at, hey, you do have Damone Clark going to develop in another year. There's a lot of moving parts there. But overall, I really like what the Cowboys did on the defensive side of the ball, minus the fact that I felt like, how I mentioned with offensive linemen, the linebacking room still has question marks for me. I still have my worries there, but if those are the two only things that I have to be worried about, and I'm not even talking about special teams yet, which, by the way, the kicking situation is still something to be determined, but I think they'll figure it out before or during training camp like they did last year. But overall, the Cowboys really addressed a lot of the questions that I had or needed them to answer for me so that I can go and be like, you know what, guys, this is how I feel. So I felt like the Cowboys did an adequate job of making sure they kept the guys that they had from last year to build on that and added more to it. And by the way, I'm not even mentioning the Stephon Gilmore trade, which was a huge plus for the Cowboys secondary. And that's awesome there. So now we got that basic analysis out of the way. What I want to do is take the time to go through the entire schedule and give you an initial season prediction and my ceiling and floor of this team. So let's go ahead and dive into that. So starting things off, we have the Cowboys traveling to New Jersey to take on the Giants in Week 1. The age-old Week 1 matchup. Now look, fun little fact here. The Cowboys have not won in Week 1 with Mike McCarthy as the head coach. Also, the last time the Cowboys won in Week 1 was in 2019 against the New York Giants. And if you want to go back even further, the last time the Cowboys beat an opponent in Week 1 not named the New York Giants, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2009. That's how far back you have to go. It's just crazy how long it's been. But that aside, now looking at this matchup, the Dallas Cowboys are going up against the Giants team that is ahead of schedule with their rebuild. When you look at this team that we have seen been run into the ground in years past, they have added a lot of nice pieces through free agency in the draft as well. They're coached up well. They have a competent front office that's putting them in that position. They're definitely on their way to becoming a serious contender to win the NFC East. If it's not this year, then next year. But one of the other things we have to keep in mind too is looking at the quarterback situation in New York. I'm not saying Daniel Jones is a bum, but he doesn't look like a force multiplier either. However, he has shown glimpses, and I think that if he can continue to improve his game under Brian Daboll, Giants are going to be a problem. And there's no issue in saying that, Cowboys fans. But with that being said, current history shows that the Cowboys have tended to have the Giants' number. So I'm going to go ahead and give the Cowboys the victory in Week 1, but don't think it's going to be a blowout. Don't think it's going to be an easy game. This is going to be a slobber knocker type game to start off the year, and I think the Cowboys eke out a Week 1 win. Moving on to Week 2, the Cowboys have their home opener against the Jets. They have Aaron Rodgers on there, and it really feels like that they were a quarterback away from being a serious threat in the AFC. Now, we'll see if the team can play as well as they did last year, minus the quarterback situation, of course. But we know it's Aaron Rodgers. It's the Dallas Cowboys. Another thing, too, the Cowboys haven't beaten the Jets since 2007. Now, I understand there's a first time for everything, right? But I'm going to give the win to the Jets here. They have Aaron Rodgers. They have a nice team over there. I'm not expecting the Cowboys to lay over and let the Jets just win, but I do think the Jets have enough firepower to get things done. And considering the recent history, I have to go with that. Next, we have the Cowboys taking on the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona. The Cardinals are a weird team to gauge because they're in a state of flux. Like, they're on the brink of fully blowing it up, but at the same time, they look like they just need to move some pieces around and they'll be just fine. The Cowboys and Cardinals have a weird history. Like, the Cowboys tend to do well in Arizona and win, but when the Cardinals come to Dallas, they tend to beat the Cowboys. I don't know how to explain it. It's just that's really how the trend has been, and these are important. But I do think the Cowboys are a better team than the Cardinals as they stand right now, and I think they're going to get ready to push the reset button down there. So I'm going to give the Cowboys the win against the Cardinals. And if there's a WTF type of loss, this could definitely be it, but I don't think so. Next, the Cowboys take on the New England Patriots at home, and the Patriots have been a tough out for the Cowboys, considering most of those games were with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. I think the Cowboys will be fine in this matchup. Mac Jones has regressed. We'll see how he does with a new offensive coaching staff put around him, because to be honest with you, I don't know what the hell the Patriots were doing last year, but now they have actual offensive play callers in there. So there's that. And on top of that, the Cowboys have a better team than the Patriots. But again, the Patriots are a team that plays you tough week in and week out. I think they're on the verge of being a team that can be in the postseason, but I think they need to figure out the quarterback situation with Mac Jones. We'll see how he does this year. But I'm going to give the Cowboys the win at home versus New England. Then we have the Cali teams upcoming. We start off with the revenge game versus the San Francisco 49ers. And look, we have the whole thing where the Cowboys have not been able to beat the San Francisco 49ers given their state. Also, Mike McCarthy has had issues facing off against the 49ers. The one plus is that the quarterback situation there is unsure. Brock Purdy is out for 2023 because of the injury he suffered in the NFC Championship game. You know, Trey Lance, what's he going to be? It's a lot of question marks there. I don't know what the hell they're doing with the quarterback. I think you should roll with Trey Lance and see what he's got at least. But at the end of the day, that is not my call to make. With that being said, the 49ers are a bad matchup for Mike McCarthy-led teams, as we have seen in his time in Green Bay and here. Sucks to say it, but it's true. This is a perfect litmus test for this Cowboys team to see if they really have gotten enough to beat in the 49ers. But again, it's the regular season, not like it matters. And on top of that, it's early, so you could be dealing with a completely different team later down the line. But I'm going to give this L to the Cowboys here, and let's move on to the first LA matchup in LA against the Chargers. This is a coin flip matchup. It's the Kellen Moore revenge game, you know, and all this other crap. But with that being said, I'm going to flip a coin. Heads for the Chargers, tails for the Cowboys. And let's see how this goes. As a heads up, the Chargers are coming off a bye week. Let's see where it lands. So you can't pick up the noise because I just flipped it onto my wrist. And it landed on tails, so I'm going to give the Cowboys the win there. And thus, they go into their bye week at 4-2. Then they open up against the Rams at home. If I'm looking at this matchup, to be really honest with you, the Rams had a horrific year in 2022, and I'm really trying not to let that impact how I'm looking at this matchup. It's really going to come down to, in my eye, one thing. Is Matthew Stafford going to be good in 2023? If the answer is yes, this is going to be a tougher matchup than people think. If he is not good in 2023, this should be a cakewalk victory for the Cowboys. 110%. They're coming off their bye week. They're going to be at home. I don't see any reason for the Cowboys to lose this game. Now, that doesn't mean it's a guarantee that they'll win the game because, again, like I say every year, you always have a what the hell kind of loss. This could be one of them, to be completely frank with you. However, what I will say is I think the Cowboys take care of business. They come out of the bye, you know, they win handily, and they move on. That's just how I look at it. The Rams are a team that's nearing a full rebuild type of status. We'll see how things go, but that's just where it looks like. And, I think that as we get towards the middle part of the season, we'll see. Then the Cowboys head over to Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia. I really hope Hurts and Dak are healthy for this, because this is going to be cinema, to say the least. Now with that, if they are playing, I think that given the nature of the Eagles, they're still going to be a tough out. I don't think the Eagles are going to be the juggernaut they were last year. But if I'm really looking at this Eagles team, kind of how I'm looking at the NFC East, they are a team with a lot of question marks. How are the new coaching staff pieces going to look? How is the defense going to look? There's a lot of things there, right? I think Jalen Hurts will continue to grow, and he'll be very good in 2023. I think this is just going to come down to, in all honesty, how does that Philadelphia defense look? I personally think the Cowboys and Eagles will split their matchup. I'm going to give the Eagles the win in Lincoln Financial Field. Then the Dallas Cowboys take on the Giants at home. I think that the Cowboys, again, have their number, and it's going to be another close matchup. But if there is one thing I will say, I would not be shocked in the slightest if the Cowboys drop a game to the Giants. But until proven otherwise, I'm going to give the win to the Cowboys here. Then the Cowboys take on the Panthers. Panthers are in full rebuild mode. They do have Bryce Young, so we'll see at this point if he's doing well and where that team is at. But I'm going to give the win to the Cowboys here until further notice. Then we go into Thanksgiving to take on the Washington Commanders. The funny thing is that the Cowboys are going to be on CBS for this telecast. And the Cowboys, when they're on any other network other than Fox, they tend to lose. And especially if it's Tony Romo and Jim Nantz on the call. In fact, they have not won a Thanksgiving matchup when that is the broadcast crew. So with that being said, I am going to give the loss to the Cowboys here on Thanksgiving. And keep in mind, Washington as a team, like I talked about the other NFC East teams, they're a quarterback away. If Sam Howell is that guy, that's awesome, but I felt like they didn't do a whole lot to really reinforce him. I could be wrong there. I think the Cowboys get hit on Thanksgiving, and they move from there. Then after that, I think the Cowboys take care of business versus Seattle, but don't think it's going to be an easy matchup. It's really going to come down to if Geno Smith continues to play well and the pieces on the roster continue to grow. As I mentioned before, because we now have the Eagles taking on the Cowboys, I'm going to give the Cowboys the victory in the split. Then the Cowboys travel on the road to take on the Bills. This could be a primetime matchup where I would love to see this game in person, but at the same time, I don't want to go out in that weather and freeze my ass off out there. So with that being said, I think that in this matchup, the Bills are a really talented team. It really comes down to where they're at the tail end of their season. And I think that we're going to really get a sense of where this Cowboys team truly is at this point. Right? If they go into Buffalo and beat the Bills, especially if the Bills are really good this year, that's going to be some cause to be like, you know what? Maybe, just maybe, we got something here. Then you had to factor in, oh, is this a possible matchup in the big game? Which I don't think so. But but with that, I think it's going to be a fun all-around matchup. That could be game of the year material. Next, Cowboys at Dolphins. Now, for me looking at this game, I'm praying that Tua is healthy and he stays upright, because this is going to be a real test for this Cowboys secondary. Those two weapons in Waddle and Hill and the speed they possess there. If the Cowboys are able to contain that, that's another good sign for this team, right? Like, these are things that I love we're getting them towards the tail end because we're going to get a sense of, okay, we're going up against tough opponents, right? Seattle, they're going to be a tough out. The Eagles, the Bills, then you have the Dolphins. This could be an offensive shootout for all I know. And if you asked me who I would trust in an offensive shootout, Dak Prescott or Tua Tagovailoa, I'm going to go with Dak Prescott, to be frank with you. And, you know, with Miami's defense, I think that they have good pieces there. And, you know, Miami was a team last year where they were just streaky. They were either good, and then they just turned the other cheek, and they became very bad, and they went on a stretch. I think Mike McDaniel has what it takes to turn that program around and make it more consistent, but that's the big thing. They got to be more consistent. So I'm hoping that we get a fun matchup there. Then we have the Lions traveling to Dallas or Arlington, however you wish to refer to it as, to take on the Cowboys. This is a Saturday game. Now, for Detroit, they have not won in Dallas in quite some time. I think that also this is going to be a huge year for Dan Campbell. This could be the game where they could look to get into the postseason, so I expect the Lions to play hard in this match, but as is the Cowboys, this could be a matchup where they need to win to be in contention to win the NFC East. And, you know, until otherwise, I think I'm going to go with the Cowboys here, but I'm not going to be shocked if Detroit beats the Cowboys towards the tail end. And then finally, we don't know when it's going to be. We do have the Cowboys traveling to Washington to close out the year once again. However, I think in this matchup, I think that the Cowboys will play harder, and especially considering the fact that I gave Washington the win in Thanksgiving, I think that they'll split there. You know, if Washington sweeps, you know, it really depends on the context. It's the last game of the year. If it's required to win the NFC East, I think the Cowboys are going to try, and if they lose, well, shit. But with that, that is my season prediction, and that's as of right now, and that puts the Cowboys at a 12-5 record. They go 4-2 in division play and a 9-3 conference record. Quite well, if I do say the least. Now, if you know me, and this will be my closing statement here, the Dallas Cowboys just need to get into the dance. It looks like a wide open arena for the Cowboys in the NFC. Realistically, you have, aside from the Cowboys, of course, the Philadelphia Eagles, the San Francisco 49ers, and pretty much that's it. You know, the NFC South is going to produce a playoff contender, and we don't know who that's going to be. Then you look at the NFC West, you have Seattle. It really depends on where they're at. But I just think that the 49ers are really the only team out there that scares me. And then you look at, you know, the NFC North, the Packers, we'll see where they're at with, you know, Jordan Love. The Lions are a team where maybe, just maybe, they're on the up and coming. The Vikings, they're the Vikings. And then, you know, I'm not talking about the Bears, but the Bears are on that path too, where they're rebuilding. Then you go to the East. Realistically, the NFC East could see, you know, the Eagles go back because of how weak the NFC is, or maybe the Cowboys get their crack at it. And I'm not afraid to say that. I'm not saying they're going to go all the way, but if there is a year for the Cowboys to break through and at least get to the NFC Championship game, this is the year. This is the closest they're probably going to get to making a run there. If they get the 1 seed, all they got to do is win 1 game and you're in. However, anything outside of that, you got to win 2 games. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up my whole soliloquy, my whole analysis on the Dallas Cowboys schedule release, and also my predictions. If you like what you heard, please leave it, down below, a comment, a like. That'd be awesome. And also subscribe and hit that notification bell as well. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. All right, guys, have a good one. Goodbye.